Firstly, let me express my thanks to Peter and Zoe for inviting us to be partners with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry on this very important initiative for Australia. Let me start by reflecting on one of the many emerging challenges for Australia, a little away from industry but very relevant. The onset of an aging population in Australia, as we all know it. It is very likely that an aging population will result in a contraction in the workforce participation levels. Australian government's Treasury Department, in its intergenerational report of 2010, projects that this will reduce from the current 65% to 61%. A ripple effect emerging from this will be felt with lesser government tax revenues, labour shortages to match business needs, and increasing expenditures on issues like health. Furthermore, resources available to governments to deliver on some of these public services will also be limited. All of this could mean an increased sharing of responsibility for societal stakeholders, business and industry, the key in sharing these responsibilities. We're already seeing some major corporates shoulder this responsibility under their corporate social responsibility or shared value mandate. Researchers have an important role to play too. We need to step out of our ivory towers and work alongside business, government and society. No doubt finding a balance between the objective, the rationale and the ideology will always be difficult. This is where institutions such as the HC Coombs Policy Forum plays an important role. The forum is a joint think tank with government and a boundary organisation working at the cusp of research and public policy to enhance public policy thinking. And now, in partnership with ACCI, we're working with industry to also transform business performance and productivity. This is why I'm pleased that the forum will become a core partner to ACCI's productivity initiative. Activating business performance through innovation and human capital that resides within organizations through this research and knowledge partnership with ACCI will be valuable. Thank you to Peter and Zoe for having us on board. So the forum is a joint think tank between the Crawford School of Public Policy at the ANU and the Australian Government, represented by the Department of Innovation, without going into its elaborate acronym. Drawing on extensive expertise from across the ANU and national partners like the Australian Broadcasting Corporation has helped us shape our mission along the needs of Australia's policy landscape, productivity and competitiveness being one of them. This is a program which I lead at the Coombs Policy Forum, and the objective is to understand emerging perspectives on the role and importance of innovation in both the private and the public sectors. Along with that, we also are keen on identifying the role of business, industry clusters, skills and education, technology's role and other workplace reforms that will influence long-term prosperity. Achieving what the OECD calls a double dividend is what we're on about. We're concerned about improving our GDP per capita, but at the same time reducing significant income inequality. Some would say competition and technology advancements are the cause for rising income inequality, in that global competition has resulted in the outsourcing of jobs to the East, and now technology replacing jobs requiring low to mid-level skills. Well, reflect on this. Remember the day when they said email and the internet would make the paper and the print industry extinct? How much paper do we use now in our offices? Our needs haven't gone away. We're simply just more selective in what we print. What about the time we thought that teleconferencing and online video chats would disrupt the airline industry? Well, it surely has. But it's just made us more productive in the way we conduct our business, in the way we conduct the quality of our business trips, and the sorts of engagements we have face-to-face. We've made our dollar work more productive for us. So my belief is this: it's emerging externalities that, in fact, reshape economies by becoming concerned about high value-added activities and efficiencies, in some way avoiding us getting too complacent. If we step into the shoes of the people from developing countries, they would say competition and technology is what has brought them out from poverty. When you see farmers and small business owners in countries like India checking commodity prices and conducting direct negotiating deals with distributors on their mobile phones, you know that they're being empowered and they're being part of an inclusive society. So the perspective you have depends on where you stand on some of these issues. The important message over here is that we need to adapt, that changes are abound, and that we need to adapt quickly. In the face of demographic changes that I talked about in the context of an aging population, Australia needs to achieve its productivity dividend through transforming human capital, ramping up technology, as we heard from Brad this morning, to improve business connectivity and performance, innovation-led practices that can be sustained, and most of all, making businesses competitive in the region and across the globe. Let me put this into perspective. How do we empower Australia's 11.5 million labour force of today to work alongside the sheer volume of India's 500 million labour force or Indonesia's 120 million strong labour force? Conversely, how do we compete with Germany's 44 million or France's 30 million labour force, who are all vying for higher living standards and better business and employment opportunities by moving up the value chain? How do we position our businesses to match successful technological and innovations coming out from countries like India? The Tata Nano car, which has 34 design patents and is priced at $2,500. The Chotu Cool, a small refrigerator which weighs 7.5 kilos, has an electricity bill of $1 a month and costs $75. A low-cost water purifier which incorporates 14 patented innovations and costs $25. Or even the world's cheapest tablet computer, Akash, which is priced at $35. This is what we have to compete with. Our challenge is huge. We need to make small businesses part of these global value chains, and that's what we hope to achieve through this partnership with ACCI. Australian businesses can play a very important role over here. The pathway to productivity that ACCI has identified are important elements by which businesses can boost productivity, add value, and better position themselves in the context of this Asian century. Management and leadership. Australia has about 1.5 million managers, leading 10 million of the workforce today. We know from research that high-performing workplaces can be 12% more productive and 15% more profitable. With almost 80% of Australia's labour force being led by managers and leaders who shape these businesses, it is no surprise then why we need to focus on this segment of the workforce. As I alluded to in my remarks on day one, it's going to be a human capital story and an innovation story going forward. This is made even clear when we reflect on some of the stats that have been produced by the McKinsey's Global Institute. In the 1970s, for the US to add $1 of GDP, it took 70% of capital-intensive activity versus 30% of labor activity. In 2010, that equation has reversed. 80% of your $1 in GDP growth has to come from labor utilization. Furthermore, leaders in the East are now waking up to the possibility that they need to internally fortify their organizations by focusing on their employees first and customers second. They know where the productivity dividend for their organizations lie. Human capital. The middle class growth in Asia is set to grow from 500 million today to 1.7 billion by 2020, 7 years from now, not too far away. Well, so where are the jobs going to come from? Only 12% of the world's population is considered to be living in the West today. By 2050, Australia is likely to have a US-sized Indonesia in its neighborhood. How do we prepare for our future? Where we once sent lower-skilled jobs overseas, no more are they going to be willing to take on such roles as they move up the income brackets. We could soon be the recipients of our own practices in that the trend could reverse and developed countries could start servicing these huge middle classes from the region. How do we develop a system that fosters individual skills transition across occupations and across sectors? Are we preparing our students in colleges and universities to be creator of jobs or just be job ready? It was quite pleasing to hear this morning from Roy and some of the others on the conversations around entrepreneurship and how younger students are taking on the challenge of establishing their own business. The challenge is pretty straightforward. If we are to derive our productivity dividend from 11.5 million of the labor force we have today, we need a system that is flexible and agile, one that rewards skills mobility and transition. Innovation. Innovation needs to be more than just technology. In many cases, it's incremental innovation that we're concerned about. The Chinese call it indigenous innovation, which means lesser reliance on products and services created overseas and more of it being created at home. Change in the mindset of how business processes are organized within organizations, business process re-engineering, better use of networks within organizations, on intrapreneurship, not entrepreneurship, skills and talent utilization within organizations, better use of data to make more improved decisions are some of the sorts of innovations that we need to be thinking about. In the context of technology, well, today over 30% of the world's population is connected to the internet in the developed world, averaging over 65%, while Asia and Africa average less than 30%. And that's in percentage terms. But if you look at the sheer number, Asia alone far exceeds America, Australia, Europe combined. The growth of social networks is also significant. For example, quarter-on-quarter growth rates on Twitter grew from 500,000 tweets in 2007 to over 2 billion in 2010. This gives you a sense of the influence that social networks are going to have in the future. Let alone the global trends, let's just look at what's happening in our own backyards over the last 8 weeks with Aki's Too Big to Ignore campaign. In less than 8 weeks, we had over 20,000 small businesses mobilized. So the trend is pretty evident. Finally, trade. Again, the government's Treasury Department modeling indicates that the higher terms of trade that the presenters talked about earlier this morning is set to decline by over 20% over the next decade. And it's going to have an influence on living standards in Australia. Looking at trade statistics, the data from the ABS showed in 2010-11, the major detractor from growth, about 2.1%, was the result of the 10% increase in imports of goods and services. Goods vehicles and passenger motor vehicles were the leading two imports in 2009-10, with growth rates of over 35%. Such trends need a reversal in Australia if we are to position our businesses more effectively in the region. So this is where the new partnership between Aki and ANU will play a role. The challenges are many, and we will start to focus on them jointly in collaboration with the many partners that Aki are bringing on board. The partnership will seek to empower individuals and businesses to maximize their potential and productivity. We will pursue research and knowledge-driven initiatives that is fit for business purpose, which will drive innovative business action. We will maintain a continuous feedback loop that optimally allocates resources between government, academia, and business. We will, through our own initiative at the Coombs Forum, we will continue to inform and work with government policy stakeholders to maximize business positioning and competitiveness in the region. In practical terms, what does this mean? Well, it's going to be the creation and mobilization of a national productivity network. We'll produce industry-relevant research insights for Aki members. And most importantly, as a research partner to this initiative, we will work in collaboration with Aki members to pilot new productivity boosting within and across industry initiatives. These collaborative efforts between Aki, ANU, and other partners will be valuable towards achieving the desired productivity and competitiveness for our businesses by boosting human capital, skills and knowledge capabilities, by transforming organizational performance, lifting the capabilities of managers and leaders, and above all, making our public policy more rigorous and nimble. We know that the US is very good at generating new ideas and commercializing them, and you only need to reflect on the scientific output produced by its universities. 27 of the top 30 global universities who produce such output are US-based. Australia can do better in developing itself as an ideas economy. If we are truly the lucky country and our natural resource boom continues into the next few decades, we need to think about and we need to work towards creating a prospect of having a strong economy built on resources wealth, natural as well as human. What I'm talking about is creating and positioning in Australia to have its existing potential, plus that of Singapore, the Scandinavian economies, and the US. As they say, good is the enemy of great. Let's not just stop at being good. The journey for us to be great has started. That must be our aspiration, and that's where we hope our work with Aki and the other partners will continue. Thank you.